Hi, I'm Shan Wu. I want to talk to you about the latest Trump effort to tear down the United States of America. Specifically, Trump's administration, through the Secretary of Homeland Security, Noam, has told Harvard they are going to revoke all of their foreign student visas. So they can't enroll foreign students. Foreign students have to basically get out. They need to transfer right now. Now, that's what they're trying to do. Let's break that down a little bit for you and explain what they're trying to do, why they're going to be stopped, and more importantly, what it really means for our country. First, let's make sure that we remind you and tell all your friends, families, relatives, it's graduation season, so I'm thinking of family and relatives, to subscribe to our channel. Make us the best, broadest, and biggest legal analysis channel that exists. And it's not just legal analysis. We're doing that intersection of politics and legal issues. And as you know, I like to really look underneath and see what is it that's in our structure that causes this kind of intersection. Where are the problems? Where are the solutions? So this past Wednesday, I was crying in the rain in New York City, my hometown. And here's a picture of me. Maybe you can't see me crying because it's raining. I was sitting outdoors at graduation of one of my daughters at Columbia. And what really moved me was hearing about all the colleges at the university's graduation, representing probably over 100 different countries were there. And you sit beneath these very sort of almost cliched giant buildings with the names of the Greek philosophers written on them. And yet that audience was so diverse. I was surrounded by families braving the rain just like me. And they were there to celebrate their children's accomplishments and educations, but they're really celebrating this ideal of American education as the most sought after educational ideal and goal in the world. I was crying a little bit because as they announced the graduating class from one of the colleges, Teachers College, which is for education, I was reminded of my mom, who passed away a couple of years ago. She got her PhD from Teachers College. And now my kid was kind of in that lineal path. But she, like my dad, they were foreign students. They came here from China to seek the best education here. She got her professional degree and they went on to have a long teaching career, mentoring and spreading education, really living up to the ideals of the country and what they wanted to get from their education. But here's what the Trump regime and its supporters want to do to this. Let's take a little listen here.
Escalation this afternoon in the Trump administration's war against Harvard University. The New York Times is now reporting that the White House halted Harvard University's ability to admit international students after Harvard refused to turn over detailed records about its student body. The New York Times writes this, quote, "The administration notified Harvard about the decision after a back and forth in recent days over the legality of a sprawling records request as part of the Department of Homeland Security's investigation. That's according to 3 people with knowledge of the negotiations. For international students already enrolled at Harvard University, this marks a threat to their ability to study in the United States at all." In a release from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem writes this, quote, "Existing foreign students must transfer or lose their legal status. It is a privilege, not a right, for universities to enroll foreign students. Harvard had plenty of opportunity to do the right thing. It refused. They have lost their student and exchange visitor program certification as a result of their failure to adhere to the law. Let this serve as a warning to all universities and academic institutions across the country," end quote. Harvard responding in a statement, quote, "The government's action is unlawful. This retaliatory action threatens serious harm to the Harvard community and our country and undermines Harvard's academic and research mission." Joining our coverage is New York Times investigative reporter Mike Schmidt, whose byline is on that reporting we read from. Mike, let me start with Harvard's response. Is any of this legal?
Well, we don't know. Harvard's going to have to go to court to fight this. And it's going to open up a whole nother legal front in their battle with the administration. And it underscores something that officials at Harvard have come to appreciate and understand, that the school is in a crisis. The school is truly in a crisis because They have lost a major amount of their funding from the federal government. And even if they succeed in court in getting that funding back, the administration can still use, or at least try to use, the levers of the federal government against them to try to harm them, as they have done here today. And maybe they're able to go to court and to get some sort of resolution about this. But if you're an international student at Harvard today, you got a clear message from the Department of Homeland Security, which was either transfer or leave the country. And what's remarkable about all of this is that about a little bit more than 25% of all the students at Harvard are international students. So that means a quarter of the students for the academic year starting in the end of August, the beginning of September, may not be at Harvard because of this, or at least today, their status about whether they can go to school is in question. And not only is that obviously a big issue for those students who are just trying to make their way through college or postgraduate studies, but it's a big question for Harvard's bottom line because of the amount of money that these students pay to the school. So Harvard, this is just another front that Harvard faces in its fight with the administration.
The fight with Harvard seems so deeply personal and clear retribution for fighting and not coming in and doing what you described as a true social deal that the law firms went in and did, that Trump and his lawyer Boris Epstein hammered out. I mean, what is it that makes this stop?
I don't know. The thing about Harvard that you have to understand is that it's different than the law firms. The law firms who wanted to fight went to court and quickly got judges to give them injunctions, temporary restraining orders to stop the executive orders. And those law firms, as much as we can tell, were able to continue on with their work. The difference about Harvard is that half of their research budget is tied to money from the federal government. So that in and of itself created a huge question about where is that research money going to come from, not just for this year, but in future years. And research is something that researchers would like some certainty about. They would not like to be thinking, oh, where is my money going to be in a year or two for this long-term study into things like cancer.
Things like cancer. I want to ask you where all of these, a lot of them are scientists, a lot of them are working on research projects into things like cancer.
And here's what the Trump regime thinks of this legacy, as reported by the Harvard Crimson, which, by the way, founded, I think, in 1873, maybe the oldest student paper run entirely by students. Big shout out to the Crimson for its great, outstanding coverage. And as reported, here's what this would do. The revocation would prevent Harvard from enrolling any international students on the F or J non-immigrant visas for the 2025-2026 academic year. Harvard currently hosts more than 6,000 international students, many of them who attend on one of these types of visas. And this announcement comes just 1 week before thousands of international students at Harvard are set to graduate. In a letter from DHS Secretary Noam, someone who likes to cosplay in front of prisoners wearing a $50,000 Rolex watch. Here's a picture of that. And actually, that timepiece, I guess, was identified as a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, which may retail actually for nearly $60,000. Okay, but that's someone who wants to lecture people about privilege. She writes in her letter that it's a privilege for Harvard to have a visa program for foreign students. But you really got that wrong. You know, it's a privilege for our country to have these young people, to have this reputation for people who want to come here and study and add to our society and to the world. You know, listening in the rain to the different colleges speak about their students, seeing all the families that were there, it really brings home to you the diversity that is the grace of our country. Secretary Noam embodies none of that. If anything, you can see her efforts and the Trump supporters and regime's efforts to tear down America. Okay, to what end? Maybe it's personal vendettas. Maybe Trump resents the elite schools. I mean, Nixon resented them too, but he didn't try to tear them down or the country. You know, they want to claim anti-Semitism is at the heart of this. They're saying that Harvard hasn't done enough to root that out, they also make this kind of a amazingly racist claim that they're in cahoots with the Chinese Communist Party. I would suggest you, based on what? They have a lot of Asian students there. And they claim all these things without a shred of evidence. They want Harvard to give over tons and tons of FERPA protected information on their students, which is Federal Educational Records Privacy Act. And her post on X, the administration is holding Harvard accountable for fostering violence, anti-Semitism, coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party on its campus. It's a privilege, not a right, for universities to enroll foreign students and benefit from their higher tuition payments. She says it's higher because a lot of them pay full freight for it. And Harvard had plenty of opportunity to do the right thing. It refused, and that's why they've lost their program. Let this serve as a message to other universities and academic institutions. She claims that Harvard didn't comply because it didn't give them a bunch of information. And in her letter, which we should put up for you, she gives them 72 hours to comply. Let me tell you about some of the ridiculous things they want the information about. Any and all records, whether official or informal, I don't know what that means. It's in the possession of Harvard University, including electronic records, audio, etc., regarding illegal activity, whether or not off campus, by a non-immigrant student enrolled at Harvard University in the last 5 years. That should be a pile of about this much, maybe like there's a newspaper article they collected. Any and all records, including electronic records, video, etc., regarding dangerous or violent activity, whether on or off campus, by a non-immigrant student in the last 5 years. Again, why would they even have information like this? Any and all records, as usual, audio, video, official or informal, regarding threats to other students by a non-immigrant student. Next one, same thing, video, audio, regarding deprivation of rights of other classmates. Now, I got news for you. Deprivation of rights can only be done by the government, right? I mean, that's why you have civil rights actions brought, not by individuals. Yeah, an individual can do something that you can say violated that person's rights, but it's rather inaccurate to say that it's a deprivation in that sense. And of course, it's totally vague. I mean, how's the university supposed to determine that? They're not a court. It's a completely bogus bunch of requests. And then, of course, my favorite, any and all disciplinary records of all non-immigrant students enrolled in the last 5 years. Any and all discipline records, doesn't matter what it is, drinking, hazing, allegedly cheating on an exam, doesn't matter whether they weren't actually found responsible for it either. They just want to see all of this. To what end? They wouldn't even know what to do with all that stuff. It's just totally ridiculous. The real message from all this should be to institutions and all of us to stand up. Federal court delivered a message. Judge Burroughs, who's considering Harvard's suit against the Trump regime for trying to defund Harvard with all these grants, slapped the TRO on this effort by Secretary Noem within 2 hours. Put that up. And she agreed that the DHS move goes forward. If it goes forward, Harvard's going to, quote, sustain immediate and irreparable injury before there's an opportunity to hear from all the parties. In their motion for a temporary restraining order, Harvard's lawyers laid out the case that allowing this order to take effect would leave a stark, irreversible scar on Harvard's campus. It would strip thousands of student visa holders of their legal status overnight, rendering them and more than 300 dependents of theirs subject to deportation. We may as well just have a box to check that automatically grants TROs against all the Trump efforts to do anything. The harm is always so obvious. And when you weigh that harm to the Trump administration, there's always zero harm to them. You always hear Trump going on about how we're taking a look at this, we're taking a look at that. They're not taking a look at anything. Ask the regime, make them produce evidence that they have about things that are supposedly going wrong. They don't have it. That's what litigation is for. Give people a chance to show what the evidence is that supposedly backs up their claims. And this is what TROs are for, to stop arbitrary, capricious harm that comes until there's a chance to present and see if there's any evidence. That's why the Trump folks hate TROs. That's why they hate nationwide injunctions, because time is not on their side. Time will always reveal that they don't have any facts, no evidence, just hate, pettiness, hate for people they don't think have any rights to be here, to go to school here, hate for them because maybe they don't look the the way they think they should look. Maybe they want everyone to look like, we're at a party at Mar-a-Lago. If they really cared about these things they claim to be caring about, anti-Semitism on campus, for example, why would they be disbanding the civil rights section at the education department, wanting to get rid of the education department altogether, disbanding the DHS civil rights section, and basically converting DOJ's civil rights section into an arm of ICE, right? That's what everything now is enforcement. It's becoming a part of ICE, and an ICE that has no mission to actually really help people. It's just blindly following whatever whimsical or hateful orders are being given to them. That's the status quo. There's a TRO as usual, and we'll see what the litigation brings. But we'll keep an eye on this and the other things. Good to talk to you again. Nice to be back, and we'll talk to you soon.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.